friends. Welcome back to ABN's Trinity channel for another episode of Islam and the News. Today is Friday, August 25th in the year of our Lord, 2017. As usual, I'm here with another hour's worth of news stories, usually more than that, but I always have to dwindle it down to try to get you the stories that you really need to know about most. Of course, I can go all day long for hours and hours. We only have 1 hour for this news show each and every Friday. I hope that you are letting your friends, family, neighbors, coworkers, etc. know about this show as well. If they don't have it, they can download for free the ABN Sat app on their Apple and Android devices, as well as a number of other platforms as well, like Apple TV, Amazon Fire Stick TV, Roku, Chromecast Stick, smart TVs, the list goes on and on. If you go to trinitychannel.com, in there, you will be able to see a lot of different platforms that you can download this free app for. If you have an iPhone or an Android phone, you can download the ABN Sat app, which takes you to ABN's digital tree, which has about 50 different little icons in there. One of them is for the Trinity channel, so you can actually stream these shows live, not just this one, but the other weekly shows as well. And we're very blessed to have you with us every single week. We are so thankful for your prayers and for your continued financial support, which allow these shows to continue and allow all of these satellite feeds to continue throughout the world. It's such a blessing to get great feedback from our viewers, and we just thank God for you and for helping to spread the word about this and the other weekly shows that people are really enjoying. So thank you so much. I want to get to the news from here from Egypt Independent. This is brand new news that just came out shortly, a little while ago while I was compiling the news. Explosions reported at Shia Mosque in Kabul. It says an Afghan official says a Shia mosque in the capital Kabul has come under attack as gunmen stormed the mosque while worshippers were at prayers. The police are reporting that there are sounds of explosions and gunfire at the scene of the attack, but details are sketchy. There was no immediate information on any casualties. Police official Mohammed Jamil says the gunmen are still inside the mosque, which was crowded with worshippers bowed in Muslim Friday prayers. The mosque is located in a northern neighborhood of Kabul. Jamil says that Afghan security forces have surrounded the mosque but are not advancing or pushing into it to prevent more casualties. So this is definitely a news story that we will have to stay tuned to. And of course, you'll be able to find this on certain websites out there. But again, that is one of the great things about Islam in the News, is that we report the news that you will usually not ever hear on the mainstream media. Even if you do, we give you that non-politically correct additional information along with it. And of course, we show many pictures and videos that the mainstream media will not play either. So again, it's just a blessing to hear all the great feedback from people who are loving this new news source. Please continue to spread the word, and also subscribe to the Trinity channel's YouTube channel, and you'll get this video and other videos as notifications as soon as they are posted to that channel. Here from AMN, I have ISIS takes heavy losses in latest round of clashes in Raqqa City. Over the past 24 hours, the U.S.-backed Syrian Democratic Forces have killed a total of 26 ISIS insurgents across 4 districts of Raqqa City. With the battle entering the 79th day, the SDF continued to push towards the city center in the face of booby traps, suicide bombers, machine gun fire, and jihadist snipers. Overnight, 7 ISIS members were neutralized in the eastern Mansub district, while 9 were killed in the Natha neighborhood. In addition, 5 ISIS members were killed in the Al-Barid suburb. And on the other hand, ISIS launched a localized counterattack on the newly liberated Ramanya district, and the operation, spearheaded by a suicide bomber, nevertheless proved fruitless, as a total of 6 ISIS fighters were killed on the axis. Al-Masdar News was not able to obtain information regarding the SDF death toll. At the moment, around 40% of the city remains under Islamic State control. From Gospel Herald, I have ISIS releases video showing fighters stomping on statue of Jesus and destroying Philippines church. The Islamic State terrorist group has released a disturbing propaganda video in which its fighters are shown stomping on a bust of Jesus, desecrating religious statues, and ripping photos of Pope Francis. The latest Inside the Khalifa video filmed in the Philippines, features a narrator speaking with an American accent who praises, quote, the truthful soldiers of Muhammad who have infiltrated the city of Morawi. The narrator explains that the occupation took place in the city because of the Philippine government tried to, quote, subjugate the Muslims and expel them from the land. Yes, we do read in the Quran that oppression is worse than killing. Some backwards logic there, but they see it as, well, if we are being oppressed in any way, if you are keeping us from doing something that we feel called to do, whether that is building mosques or doing dawah or calling people to Islam, even in a peaceful way to just see if they do, with this no compulsion in religion. If you keep them from doing that, well, then that is oppression. And again, the Quran says that oppression is worse than killing. So, yeah. He says ISIS soldiers freed inmates from the local jail and attacked local churches as well. The video then depicts ISIS members destroying a church and its contents, including a crucifix, a statue of Jesus on the cross, and one of Mary, among other saints. Pictures of Pope Benedict XVI and Pope Francis are also shown being torn up and thrown to the ground before the church goes up in flames. It says here, quote, after all their efforts, it would be the religion of the cross that would be broken, says the narrator. The Crusaders' enmity toward the Muslims only served to embolden a generation of youth. And then a little bit further down, it says Muslim fighters loyal to ISIS leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi first infiltrated the city in May in an effort to establish a caliphate, or city ruled by Islamic law. About 200,000 residents have been evacuated since the start of the conflict, but several hundred, many of them Christians, are believed to still be held captive inside the city. Philippines government figures put the death toll at 758. 584 of those are militants, and 129 soldiers and 45 civilians. Also, I have from Al Arabia, 20 killed, 50 injured as ISIS gunmen storm attack Kabul mosque. So this is also following on with this news story, a little bit different pictures here. And it says here from Al Arabia, because we do have to get this complementary information from different sources. That's a great way to do it when you're trying to make sure that you are getting the most accurate news or all sides of the story. Gunmen stormed a Shiite mosque in the Afghan capital while worshippers were at Friday prayers, setting off an explosion that killed a security guard outside, pushing into the two-story building. A cleric who was leading the service was also killed, according to the reports. So that is something that we did not get in the last story. And again, that's why it's good to combine these. It does go on to quote the Amaq news agency. It also says, we have 20 killed and more than 50 wounded. Mohammed Ismail Kawusi, a health ministry official, told AFP. The attack is the latest by ISIS to hit the Afghan capital. Last month, the group attacked the Iraqi embassy in Kabul and afterward issued a warning to all Shiites in Afghanistan, saying ISIS militants would attack Shiite places of worship. So, just like around 1400 years ago, we had this split between the Sunnis and Shiites, the two major divisions within Islam, still fighting each other today. And of course, killing each other for the exact same reason that ISIS kills people. And they say, well, it's because you are not a Muslim. Because the Sunnis say, well, the Shias, well, you're not Muslim. Shias are like, well, Sunnis, you're not Muslim. And that's why it's just ridiculous for people to say that, oh, ISIS is not Islamic because they're killing Muslims. Well, number one, you're committing a logical fallacy. You're begging the question. You're assuming that they're Muslims. But ISIS would say, well, no, they're not. That's why we're killing them. Because they say that, they are supposed to kill non-Muslims, kafir, murtads, and hypocrites. And if someone says that they're a Muslim, but they aren't doing what Muhammad said to do, and ISIS believes, well, they are doing what Muhammad said to do. And if you look at the primary sources of Islam, that lines up more with the actions of ISIS than your American or Western Muslim neighbor, coworker, friend, etc., then, it's not surprising that ISIS says to these moderates, or again, these nominals more specifically, well, you are not a Muslim. Because if you were, you'd be doing what we're doing. So ISIS is, of course, quick to kill, the Jews and the Christians. But of course, they're also killing people who consider themselves Muslims. But then ISIS would say, well, no, you're not. And again, this is just an ongoing thing. I have here from AMN, The dog that hunted ISIS militants in eastern Homs. I have a video to show you here that the elite ISIS hunters of the Syrian Arab Army, SAA, have released a soldier's memoir on their social media telling the story of a German shepherd named Bagheera who fought alongside the formation in eastern Homs. According to the memoir, the dog shown in the video below as in front of you, was found by the ISIS hunters during a reconnaissance operation and was quickly adopted by the army unit, being given the name Bagheera. Bagheera was killed whilst on operation with the ISIS hunters after charging at jihadist militants during a skirmish. The memoir belongs to an unnamed ISIS hunters soldier who, as a Syrian living in France, left his home in Europe to join the Syrian army after his grandparents were killed by ISIS. Out of breaking Israel news, I have ISIS video of 10-year-old American boy threatening Trump, quote, the puppet of the Jews. It says here the Islamic State published a video showing a 10-year-old boy playing in the ruins of Syria. The unidentified boy, allegedly the son of a U.S. soldier, threatens U.S. President Trump, calling him, quote, the puppet of the Jews. So let's play that video for you now.
Well, we've seen Americans speaking for ISIS before, but never a child. Experts say a script was likely written for him. But to hear those words spoken by a young boy is unsettling, to say the least. Counterterrorism officials say that may be the goal, to shock and deflect attention from the group's dwindling territory.
In the video, the boy speaks fluent English.
My name is Yusuf and I'm 10 years old.
Appearing to read off a script, the child saying he and his mother moved to Syria 2 years ago.
My father is an American soldier who fought the Mujahideen in Iraq.
NBC News has not verified the boy's identity, nationality, or whereabouts. The slickly produced 7-minute propaganda video shows him playing with another child he says is his 7-year-old best friend. The two children seen walking through rubble in what he says is the Syrian town of Raqqa, where the U.S. estimates 2,000 ISIS fighters remain under siege. The boy mentions the president by name.
My message to Trump, the puppet of the Jews.
And he's seen training with ISIS fighters, threatening to take the battle to the U.S.
So get ready, for the fighting has just begun.
The video seen by many as exploiting a young boy, glamorizing a terrorist lifestyle.
What does ISIS hope to get out of using this child?
I think this video is very carefully choreographed cinema. It's deliberate. It's designed to capture the attention of America and Americans.
ISIS has shown children in videos before. Researchers estimate about 24 children are used in operations every month. But who this boy is remains a mystery this morning.
We've been able to build up a large profile on lots of people, but we don't have anything on this child.
Now, the U.S. military tells NBC News no service members have reported this as their child. Experts say if he is American, they don't think it will take long to identify him and any relatives still in the U.S. Matt and Savannah.
Very disturbing, Kristen. Thank you.
Out of Al Arabia, I have 1,532,000 pilgrims arrive in Saudi Arabia. It says here, according to the latest reports, 1,531,861 to be exact, pilgrims have arrived by Friday in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. The General Directorate of Passports said in its daily statistics that 1,432,656 pilgrims arrived by air, 84,892 by land, and 14,331 by sea. This marked an increase of over 33% compared with the same period last year. The number of pilgrims from Pakistan reached 167,903, while 157,048 were the number of pilgrims that arrived from India. Indonesia pilgrims that arrived numbered 280,207. Meanwhile, Saudi security forces have paraded through Mecca ahead of Hajj, with Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman and other top officials among those watching. This military display took place on Wednesday. Also from Al Arabia, I have Saudi Crown Prince meets with U.S. officials. It says Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman has met with United States President Donald Trump's senior administration officials on Tuesday. Prince Mohammed bin Salman met with Jared Kushner, senior advisor to Trump, as well as U.S. envoy to the Middle East Jason Greenblatt and Deputy National Security Advisor Dina Powell. During the meeting, both sides' leadership affirmed their commitment to strengthening their relationship in close cooperation. The two sides also agreed to support their efforts aimed at achieving real and lasting peace between Israelis and Palestinians and achieving security, stability, and prosperity of the Middle East and beyond. Another key topic of discussion on Tuesday was the common priority of cutting off all forms of support for terrorists and extremists and coordinating the ongoing development of the Global Center for Countering Extremist Thought. And that was a very interesting facility that you saw a number of weeks ago on Islam in the News when President Trump was visiting Saudi Arabia. And they went into this facility, which had people all over the place on computers. They had the women upstairs, if I recall correctly. And they were basically saying, hey, this is the new Global Center for Countering Extremist Thought. And the interesting thing is that Saudi Arabia never defined those terms. They never defined what they meant by extremist or what they meant by terrorist. So that is what makes this news story and that one that I had mentioned mentioned previously so interesting as well. From Asia News, I have Saudi airstrike hits hotel, at least 41 dead. Some witnesses put the death toll at 60. About 100 people were in the building, and civilians are feared dead. For the Saudi-led coalition, the hotel was a, quote, legitimate military high-value target. At least 41 people were killed in a Saudi-led airstrike that hit a hotel yesterday in the Arhab district, 20 kilometers north of the Houthi rebel-controlled Yemeni capital of Sana'a. Medics found 35 bodies as well as body parts, some dangling from the building after the roof collapsed. The rest were under the rubble. At least 13 people were wounded. According to some witnesses, the death toll is around 60. About 100 people were inside the hotel at the time of the attack. Some civilians are almost certainly among the victims. According to the medical staff, the killed included farmers. And officials and some of the present said that Houthi rebels were also present. According to other witnesses, Khat farmers were in the hotel. A Saudi coalition spokesman said that a, quote, legitimate military high-value target was hit in Arhab, adding that those, quote, who perished were members of an armed renegade group. From Al Arabia, I have Muslims in China's Xinjiang region, the happiest in the world. Muslims living in China's far western region of Xinjiang are the happiest in the world, and people should not believe the lies spread by extremists and their Western supporters, a senior official wrote on Friday in an unusually strong-worded piece. Hundreds of people have been killed in Xinjiang in the past few years in violence between Uyghurs, a mostly Muslim people who speak a Turkish language, and ethnic majority Han Chinese, blamed by Beijing on Islamist extremists. Rights groups and Uyghur exiles say the unrest is more a product of Uyghur frustration at Chinese controls on their culture and religion. China denies any repression. Writing in the official Xinjiang Daily, the region's deputy foreign publicity director, Ality Saleyev, said Xinjiang was stable, harmonious, prosperous, open, and modern. Visitors see this for themselves when they visit, subverting the impression created in Western media of the opposite, he added. It says here, quote, many people say from the bottom of their heart, the happiest Muslims in the world live in Xinjiang. The problem stems from the, quote, evil collusion between extremists and, quote, hostile Western forces, the official added, without offering any names. Says they coordinate with hostile Western forces to wantonly spread rumors, misrepresent, vilify, and besmirch Xinjiang and the overseas media. From AMN, I have 600,000 Syrians return home, majority to Aleppo. According to a study by the International Organization for Migration, a United Nations body, some 602,759 displaced Syrians have been returned to their homes, of which about 2/3 of that number specifically resettled in Aleppo governorate. The period of time that study accounts for is from January to June 2017. Of the 602,759 returned Syrians, approximately 84% were internally displaced, and the remaining 16% were displaced in Lebanon, Iraq, Turkey, and Jordan. The study found that two of the biggest religions that had seen the resettlement of displaced Syrians were the provinces of Aleppo and Hama. These are the two biggest regions that had seen the resettlement of displaced Syrians, Aleppo and Hama, in which 405,420 and 75,209 people, respectively, were returned. Furthermore, regarding Aleppo governorate, the UN report specified that 97% of all returned people actually settled into their original homes. The remaining 3% were said to be renting, living in abandoned households, or staying in informal refugee camps. That study went on to clarify that in the event the housing conditions which Syrians have returned to were not perfect, as general access to health services, clean water, and food remains a problem in many areas. From Jihad Watch, I have Iran caught shipping jihad warriors to Syria on commercial flights in violation of nuclear deal. It says here, new photographs obtained by congressional leaders show Iran shipping militant soldiers to Syria on commercial airline flights, a move that violates the landmark nuclear agreement and has sparked calls from U.S. lawmakers for a formal investigation by the Trump administration. The Washington Free Beacon has learned. Photographs published by a Washington, D.C. think tank and provided to Congress show Iran using its flagship commercial carrier, Iran Air, to ferry militants to Syria, where they have joined the fight against U.S. forces in the region. The new photographic evidence has roiled congressional leaders who accuse Iran of violating the nuclear deal, which prohibits it from using commercial air carriers for military purposes. These lawmakers are demanding the Trump administration investigate the matter and consider imposing new sanctions on Iran. The release of the new photographs allegedly showing Iran Air's illegal activity comes as top U.S. air carrier manufacturer Boeing moves forward with a multi-billion-dollar deal to sell Iran Air a new modern fleet. Many in Congress have opposed the deal due to Iran's long-standing use of commercial aircraft for military purposes, such as transporting weapons and troops to regional hotspots such as Syria and elsewhere. It remains unclear the extent to which the former Obama administration was aware of this activity, which came in part while it was promoting Western airline sales to Tehran. From WND, speaking of Robert Spencer and Jihad Watch, WND reported PayPal bans Jihad Watch based on SPLC hate smear. Robert Spencer warns others will be targeted in assault on free speech. Now, the update here is that Spencer has said that PayPal has restored its account with Jihad Watch, but he, being Spencer, says he considers it a victory for free speech, but he will not restore the PayPal buttons on his site after the company's overreach, quote unquote. The internet payment company PayPal banned the website of Islam expert Robert Spencer from using its service after a far-left news service accused Jihad Watch of, quote, extreme hostility toward Muslims. Spencer told WND he was contacted by a reporter with ProPublica, a nonprofit that conducts investigative journalism, and asked about the controversial Southern Poverty Law Center's designation of Jihad Watch as a hate group, quote unquote. Asked by reporter Lauren Kirchner if he disagreed with the designation, Spencer replied, yes, I certainly do. Noting that for years, quote, leftists and Muslim groups with numerous ties to Hamas and the Muslim Brotherhood have smeared as hate, quote unquote, all attempts to speak honestly about the motivating ideology behind jihad terrorism. And we know that this is definitely the case. You know, anyone who is knowledgeable about Islam and informs other people, if you do it in any way that the Islamists don't like, well, then all of a sudden you are labeled a Islamophobe, a racist, a bigot, or intolerant, all of which don't stand up to what they are claiming. They all really break down. Of course, Islam being a religion and not a race, doesn't even make sense to call anyone a racist. And to call you intolerant, well, they have to redefine what tolerance means, because tolerance, true tolerance, means that you believe one thing and I believe another thing, and they're different, but we both put up with each other. That is what tolerance actually is. So when they call you intolerant because they don't like what you're saying, then all they're doing is proving that they are intolerant of your differing opinion that they don't like or agree with. So that's another term that breaks down. And also, too, if you haven't noticed this, I definitely have, most people who use the term Islamophobe or Islamophobic in a accusatory fashion usually are faxophobic, because they don't want to admit true Islamic history and Islamic expansion and the life of Muhammad and all these other things which educated people are just trying to let the non-educated people know about. So interesting stuff there. And back from Asia news, I have out of India, instant divorce ban, a half victory for Indian women. Yesterday, the Supreme Court ruled against the practice and called on Parliament to come up with a new law on this matter. A new Islamic marriage law must be approved within 6 months. For activists, quote, Muslim women will be able to enjoy their fundamental rights. This is out of Mumbai. It says the Supreme Court of India has ruled that Islamic, quote, instant, unquote, divorce, known as triple talaq, is unconstitutional. India's parliament now has 6 months to come up with an appropriate law on Islamic marriage, divorce, and succession. Yesterday, 3 justices against 2 accepted a petition signed by 50,000 Muslim women who have long complained about discrimination. Now, husbands can no longer divorce their wives by simply pronouncing the word talaq, repudiation, 3 times. According to the All India Muslim Women Personal Law Board, acronym AIMWPLB, the ruling was, quote, a moment of great victory that brought tremendous relief, quote unquote. At the same time, women will not give up, and for them, only, quote, half of the battle has been won. When the decision was announced, Muslim women expressed great appreciation. The justices have brought to a close an issue that has divided India's Islamic community. Now, Parliament must draft a law that regulates Islamic marriage. From Morning Star News, I have Christian mother who died in detention in Eritrea shows signs of torture, mourners note. This is out of Nairobi, Kenya. A relative at the burial of a Christian mother of 3 who died in detention in Eritrea told Morning Star News her body showed signs of torture that could have contributed to her death. Eritrean authorities arrested Fakadu Debese and her husband in the northern town of Adi Kola as part of a crackdown in May, when at least 122 Christians were detained for worshiping in unregistered churches. Early this month, she died in detention north of the capital, Asmara, at Mekdel Abiet, a camp in the northern Red Sea region, where prisoners are held in harsh desert heat. It says here, quote, it has been very difficult consoling the children. A relative caring for the couple's children told Morning Star News they want to know what happened to their mother. From Al Arabia, have after Jordan, Lebanon repeals Marry the Rapist law. The Lebanese parliament passed a law to abolish a controversial article which granted rapists an escape, quote unquote, from prison if they married their victims. Wednesday's move by the legislature follows years of campaigning against articles dealing with violence against women. The law had been in place since the late 1940s, and the Lebanese law stated that rapists are punishable by up to 7 years in prison. If the rape victim is a person with a special need, physical or mental, the penalty was increased. Article 522 added that if the violator marries the victim, criminal prosecution is suspended. It says here, quote, "The repeal of Article 522 is an important and overdue step to protect women's rights in Lebanon," said Bassem Hawaja, Lebanon researcher at Human Rights Watch. It says, quote, "Parliament should now follow this up by passing pending legislation to end child marriage and marital rape, both of which are still legal in Lebanon." Supporters of the law in socially conservative areas of the country argued that the marriage would salvage the honor of the woman and her family. Out of World Watch Monitor, I have Kenyan Christians killed for refusing to recite Islamic Shahada. The 3 Kenyan Christians were hacked to death by al-Shabaab militants on Friday night after they refused to recite the Islamic prayer of faith. A 4th Christian, the mentally challenged older brother of one of the 3, was also killed. At around 9 p.m., Chikawa Muthemba, who was in his 40s, was dragged out of his home in Kasala Karu, Lamu County, by a group of armed men and taken to the nearby home of his brother-in-law, Joseph Kasena, 42, where a 17-year-old neighbor, Kadenj Katana, also happened to be at the time. The 3 men were held at machete point and ordered to recite the Shahada. When none of them did, the attackers began to tie them up. When the men resisted, they were hacked to death. Then the attackers went to the home of Joseph's older brother, Charo, who was in his late 40s, and killed him. Joseph's wife, Caroline, who is in her late 30s, watched everything happen and is, quote, "severely traumatized," according to a local source. Their 17-year-old daughter, Zawadi, was out of town at the time. The picture that you're seeing there now, this is Egypt. Copts worship in streets after clashes over church permit. Tensions between Muslims and Coptic Christians in a village in Upper Egypt have reportedly softened their following clashes at the weekend. Copts in the village of Esbat al-Forn in the Minya governorate were stopped from holding mass at a private home on Sunday, the 20th of August, because they had no permit. Local Muslims had reportedly complained that the Copts were meeting at the home illegally, which led to the clashes. But the Copts processed peacefully through all the village, maybe it meant to say protest, processed peacefully through the village streets on Monday, August 21st, to celebrate the Feast of the Assumption of Mary, and all was calm, says the Egypt Independent. According to the newspaper, the local bishop, Anba Makarius, said the Muslims in the village have never objected to the prayers of the Coptic Christians in any place in Esbat al-Forn. The local authorities are reportedly, quote, "considering the Christians' request for a license to hold religious services at the residential property, while also searching for suspects involved in the violent clashes on Sunday." It says here, quote, "He added that the relations between the people are kind and neighborly, contrary to media reports that say Muslims object to Christian prayers," okay, "and that prayers were held in the streets in peace and security with no protest." Now, as you can see there, we showed the pictures there, that obviously that is not the case. Now, this is, of course, interesting to people in the West, because this is exactly what happens when you have no freedom of religion and freedom to assemble and freedom of speech and all the other freedoms that are here in the West. And that's why America is definitely a beacon to the world. As former President Ronald Reagan has said that this is the last stand on earth. If we lose freedom here, there's nowhere to escape to. So the U.S., of course, not a Christian nation, quote unquote, like many people think that it is, still is definitely a beacon of hope and of light and of freedom throughout the world, especially countries that are under Sharia, which do not respect law that's non-Islamic for non-Muslims. I have here from the Gospel Herald, Egypt closes 1,300 member church to appease Islamic extremists. Authorities have closed a church that serves three villages in Upper Egypt on the pretext that area Muslims object to it. Okay, we need to kind of like get this reporter and let them talk to that last reporter, let them know that this is actually the case. One of at least 15 Christian worship sites shuttered in the Bishopric of Minya, sources said. Coptic Orthodox Bishop of Minya, Anbar Makarios, spent weeks appealing to security officials to reopen the Virgin Mary and St. Paula Church in Minya Governorate's Kedwan village, which was closed in July. When those talks failed, the bishop issued a statement denying security agency assertions that area Muslims object to the 1,300-member church, saying they live peaceably with Coptic Christians and that any opposition comes from a small extremist faction. It says here, quote, "There's actually no disagreements or disputes between the Copts and Muslims," he said. "He among them who opposes opening the church, as if any is found, gives the excuse of the necessity to obtain a security clearance. Regardless of whether these may be right in their opposition or not, the authorities, instead of responding by pointing out that this is the prerogative of the state institutions, or by stating that allowing prayer is a legal right, affirm prevention of prayer. In doing so, they underscore at the same time that the opposing factions are right in their reasoning." And it was just last week, I believe, on Islam in the News that I gave you the news story out of Australia that the government officials in a particular area denied the building of a religious building because it might make Islamic extremists want to attack it. And it said right there, it's complete a reverse in logic. Like, oh, somebody who shouldn't actually attack it may attack it. So because that is a possibility, let's not build it in the first place. So completely backwards logic there. Out of Al Arabia, I have Spanish van loaded with gas canisters found in Rotterdam. Dutch officials found a van with Spanish license plates loaded with gas canisters late Wednesday after canceling a rock concert in Rotterdam following a terror attack warning. The Spanish driver of the van, quote, was arrested and taken to the police station, Rotterdam police said in a tweet. Dutch bomb squad officials were investigating the van, they added, which had been found close to the Masilo concert hall in the city. It comes less than a week after twin car bombs attacks in Spain killed 15 people on Thursday. Those attacks were claimed by ISIS. Earlier in the evening, the Dutch authorities had decided to cancel the concert by American rock group in Europe's largest port city after receiving a tip-off from Spanish police around 5:30 p.m. about a possible terror attack. Rotterdam police confirmed the decision was taken due to a, quote, possible terrorist threat, in that the van's driver had been arrested. From Zero Hedge, I have zero tolerance. Venice mayor orders cops to shoot anyone who shouts Allahu Akbar. It says here, the Times reports that Italian Mayor Luigi Brugnaro claimed that his city, Venice, was safer than Barcelona, where 14 people died being run down by a van last week. And I'm going to be giving you a few different quotes that are interspersed in this article here. It says, in contrast with Barcelona, where they had not set up protection, we keep our guard up. Speaking at a conference in Rimini, northeast Italy, he further revealed the extraordinary order he has given to armed police at one of the most popular tourist attractions in Europe. It says here, quote, if anyone runs into St. Mark's Square shouting Allahu Akbar, we will take him down. A year ago, I said within 4 paces, now within 3. I will say it in Venetian. And then he speaks in Venetian. We will shoot him. The Mirror additionally reports that he went on to recall the arrest in March of 4 suspected jihadists who allegedly planned to kill hundreds of tourists by blowing up the world-famous Rialto Bridge. They wanted to go to Allah, but we'll send them straight to Allah before they can do any damage. This is what it says, quote unquote. Late last night, Brugnaro stirred the pot even more. He says, quote, I have never been politically correct. In fact, I am politically correct, and that's why we also need a naval blockade against people coming into Italy from North Africa. Nobody from the Venice Police Department has commented, And it says underneath that picture there, we can only imagine the uproar this would have created in America. Does Italy have CNN? From Bare Naked Islam, I have God bless Hungary for rejecting EU demands that they welcome thousands of Muslim invaders posing as refugees. Hungary returns to its roots as a historic bastion of Christianity after suffering 200 years of Islamic Ottoman rule and Soviet communist domination. No way is Hungary going down that slippery slope for Europe by allowing thousands of Muslims into the country to chip away at the Judeo-Christian values and culture that enable Hungary to remain Hungary. And we have a video to share with you now.
In a time when most of Europe is in the grips of atheism, there is a nation where Christianity seems to not only be holding its own, but some say is thriving. Imagine a government that is unabashedly Christian, that thinks Christian values are worth defending, that wants to protect and even nourish the family. Welcome to Hungary. Hungary's constitution is explicitly Christian. It says that marriage is between one man and one woman, and that life begins at conception. It even includes the phrase, God bless the Hungarians. Hungary's faith church, with 300 branches, is one of the largest Pentecostal churches in Europe, with 70,000 attenders. And the Hungarian government has taken on the role of protecting Christianity. It's even set up an office to help persecuted Christians worldwide. When CBN News brought to the world the story of Sweden's threat to deport Iranian actress Aydin Stranson back to Islamic Iran, only one nation stepped up and offered her asylum: Hungary. The Hungarian government says taking in persecuted Christians is our moral and constitutional duty.
Hungary wants to protect the European values, the European Christian and Jewish values.
Hungarian policy analyst István Poda says Hungary has only returned to its roots as a historic bastion of Christianity, dating back over 1,000 years, and despite almost 200 years of Muslim Ottoman rule, and after World War II Soviet communist domination. Secretary of State Zoltán Kovács.
You have to stick to your traditions and legacies. Europe's legacy is a Christian legacy, not necessarily in a religious form, but most definitely in a cultural form.
And it's this belief that has Hungary locked in a battle with the European Union over migrants. Mr. Orbán has accused the EU of trying to Islamize Europe, and Hungary has infuriated Brussels by building a fence to keep illegal migrants out. The European Union is ticked because Viktor Orbán has told Brussels to essentially take a hike when it comes to open borders. Hungary has seen the terrorism and chaos caused by migration in Western Europe and has said, not here. The European Union has even gone to court to force Hungary, Poland, and the Czech Republic to take in migrants. Mr. Orbán has accused Brussels of blackmail.
Securing the borders to stop illegal migration is indeed a solution, and is the only way actually to reinstate law and order at the borders of the European Union, and not the other way around.
Kovács says it matters that most of the migrants trying to enter Hungary are Muslim. And he says Western European nations are paying a heavy price by pretending that Islam doesn't matter.
We've been living together or living close to Islam for centuries in the past, and we all know about it. So that's why it does matter who is coming and in what manner people are coming.
Orbán is often portrayed in the Western media as sort of a version of Vladimir Putin, an undemocratic strongman. In fact, at an EU summit a few years ago, the European Commission president reportedly greeted Orbán with the words, "Hello, dictator." Hungary is certainly not a dictatorship, but Orbán's critics accuse him of corruption and using the instruments of government against his political opponents, including the recent billboard campaign against billionaire George Soros.
What we see today in Hungary is the shameless use of public money, of tax money, to formulate pro-government messages.
Since 2010, the Hungarian government has been continuously weakening the system of checks and balances in Hungary and weakening democratic institutions.
But Orbán, a man who even his critics concede is a skilled politician, doesn't have a serious political rival. He will probably remain in power, meaning Hungary's standoff with the European Union over migrants is likely to escalate. But it also means that Hungary will continue to have a government that thinks Christianity is worth protecting. Dale Hurt, CBN News, Budapest.
From Al Arabia, I have gang rape of woman on public bus sends shockwaves across Morocco. Mass protests have erupted across Moroccan cities on Tuesday after video footage showing showing young men raping a woman on a bus caused widespread outrage on social media. A number of activists and civil society groups have also called for organized protests scheduled for Wednesday in several Moroccan cities, such as Agadir, Casablanca, and Rabat, to denounce the growing phenomenon of rape in the country and demand solutions. Zahra al-Falsawi, one of the activists who called for the demonstration, said, quote, "We cannot be silent about this terrible incident. The poor girl was taken advantage of. Furthermore, rape has become so redundant in Morocco that it is almost normal," pointing out that, quote, "We all should unite against these phenomena to suppress them out of society so as not to ruin and rotten the moral level of Moroccans." The video, which Al Arabia English had decided not to repost in this article, given its graphic nature, led to the arrests of 6 men by Tuesday. The video was not, again, posted here because of that, but we did show a picture for you. From Creeping Sharia, I have UK Muslim MP tells victims of Muslim rape gangs to shut their mouths for the good of diversity. It says here, prominent Labour MP and key ally of Jeremy Corbyn shared a social media message telling victims of sickening sex abuse to shut up for the good of diversity. Naz Shah retweeted and liked a post on Twitter by an account parodying left-wing writer Owen Jones, which said, quote, "Those abused girls in Rotherham and elsewhere just need to shut their mouths for the good of diversity." Ms. Shah, who later deleted the retweet and unliked the post, was a key figure in leading the furor against a column written by The Sun's Trevor Kavanaugh about the grooming sex scandal last week. Equality and Human Rights Commission Chief Executive Rebecca Hilsenrath immediately condemned the Labour MP the other night. She said Ms. Shah should know better. It says, quote, "We need to keep the victims of these horrific crimes at the heart of the debate and always remember that diversity is not served by silence." The British-born Muslim MP, 43 years old, who was once a key aide to Shadow Chancellor John McDonnell. It says here in one, she shared rants on Facebook calling for Israel to be uprooted and dumped in America. In another, she likened Israeli policies to those of Hitler and also wrote, "The Jews are rallying." She later blamed her anti-Semitism on, quote, ignorance. Now, last year, I have this news story here, just to give you a timeline of up to recent times. I have here, as out of the Daily Mail, Iowa congressman accuses Copernic's Islamic TV host girlfriend of being behind his changed political views and Black Lives Matter protest, and even claims she has made him sympathetic to ISIS. Republican Steve King has blasted San Francisco 49ers quarterback Colin Kaepernick for supporting the Black Lives Matter movement. King suggests that Kaepernick has come under the political influence of his avowedly liberal girlfriend, TV and radio personality, Nessa Diab. Quarterback has come under fire for refusing to stand during the singing of the national anthem. Aside from being liberal, Diab is also a Muslim, leading some conservatives to wonder if Kaepernick has secretly converted to Islam. King has generated controversy in the past, most recently by claiming that non-whites have contributed nothing to civilization. Now, that is a background story to the next one out of Bare Naked Islam, which says Hamas and Sharia-supporting enemy of the state, Linda Sarsour, praises another American hater, Colin Kaepernick. Kaepernick can't get a job in the NFL anymore because of his public disrespect for the country that made him a millionaire. Maybe he should get a job with Sarsour. NYC mayor gives $10 million to Linda Sarsour to spew her hatred for America and Israel. The Arab American Association of New York, a Brooklyn-based nonprofit run by Linda Sarsour, was selected as one of the 14 groups by the mayor's Fund to Advance New York to receive $10 million over 5 years. Now we have a video for you here of what Linda Sarsour shared with the audience, so we'll play that for you now.
So we stand here today in support of Brother Cap, a man who puts his money where his mouth is. So not only did he kneel during the game in solidarity with the communities that he comes from, he has invested in uplifting and educating the blackest brown young people in this country. Because Colin Kaepernick could have easily said, I'm going to stand here and put my hand on my heart and say the Pledge of Allegiance. So I want to make something real clear. For a long time, we've been talking about ending white supremacy, and people have been saying that we were really radical, that was a radical thought to put forth. All of a sudden, in the past few days, ending white supremacy became a mainstream idea. See, sisters and brothers, it don't take a lot of courage for you to stand up after white coward men with tiki torches start walking around a place like Charlottesville. It takes real courage to go after the real white supremacists, the ones in the suits in the boardrooms, the ones sitting in Congress, the ones who are profiting off the very communities that are here today. And when you hear us talking about white supremacy, we're not talking about white people. So we don't need white people to be defensive when we're talking about ending white supremacy. What we hope is that there are courageous white people who stand with us to call for an end to white supremacy that has oppressed this country from the days of its founding. We got people over here on this side holding up Blue Lives Matter flags. So let's talk about that for one quick second, because that bothers me. So we want you to know that we will not be silenced by Blue Lives Matter, by white supremacists, by neo-Nazis, by right-wing Zionists. Expect us anytime there is a fight for justice or a fight against injustice. You better expect us, because we will be there, and we will be there on the front lines, and that means putting our lives on the lines for justice. Malcolm X said, if you are not ready to put your life on the line for freedom, take that word out of your mouth.
Speaking of Linda Sarsour and Islamists, the last news story that I have for you here from Middle East Forum, putting an end to government funding of Islamism. In Tuesday's speech, President Trump denounced the flow of U.S. money to Pakistan, while the nation harbors terrorists. South Asian Islamism is an enormous problem, and yet a great deal of the discussion in America surrounding Islamism focuses on the Egyptian-founded Muslim Brotherhood. But the Muslim Brotherhood is far from the only Islamist network in the United States. It is simply the best known. Other Islamist movements also benefit from government ignorance about the diversity of Islam and Islamism across the globe. The South Asian Islamist movement Jamaat-e-Islami, for instance, has received millions from the U.S. taxpayer for its powerful network of charities and welfare services, which are designed to obtain external funding as well as legitimize JI as a representative voice of Muslims in both America and South Asia. Although JI has its own ideologues, literature, and infrastructure, it is often described as the South Asian cousin, quote unquote, of the Muslim Brotherhood. Qazi Ahmad Hussain, head of JI in Pakistan, has declared, "We consider ourselves as an integral part of the Brotherhood and the Islamic movement in Egypt. Our nation is one." And yes, we do see at the end of the day, even though a lot of these different groups, Sunnis and Shias and Saudi Arabia and the Muslim Brotherhood and these other groups, hate each other, dislike each other, for the most part, they tend to be working together, at least to a degree, to bring about the common goal, and that is to have the world under Sharia, going back to the early jurists who codified the schools of Islamic jurisprudence, the four major Sunni madhabs, to have the Dar al-Islam, the Dar al-Harb, and to have the whole world under Dar al-Islam. When there's no more jahiliyyah, there's no more ignorance, there's no more oppression, quote unquote, that is keeping people from having no compulsion in religion and being free to choose Islam or not. And again, this is a religio-political system, and it's at the base of the system is the religion. That's a spiritual problem that requires a spiritual solution. And that spiritual solution is the gospel of the Lord Jesus Christ. That is what needs to be shared with Muslims throughout the world. And that is one more reason why you need to watch Islam in the News every single Friday, because we not only give the news, but we also talk about theology and Christian truths, and of course exalt the name of the Lord Jesus Christ every single Friday, as well as every other day of the week, and during our other weekly shows as well. So please stay tuned to ABN's Trinity channel to watch this and other weekly shows every single week. Please continue to pray for us and support this network financially, which will allow these shows to continue and continue to be seen on your screens. So thank you for being with us today. We'll see you next Friday for more Islam and the News.